I love this. This reminds me of the old space launches. Okay. Okay.
Hi, Kathy.
Harriet, this last minute, it's the longest one, but it's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Jim Eskin, and on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training, it's my privilege to welcome you to our nonprofit empowerment webinar series. This one is addressing the go-giver mindset. A big question we hear all the time is, can one person make a difference? Well, I have a very strong opinion on this. You know what today is May 6th, and it's National Nurses Day. And I can tell you that every single nurse, every hour, is making a profound difference in the quality of our lives. I also know that every nonprofit makes a difference, okay? Everybody who works at a nonprofit makes a difference. Every board member, volunteer, donor, supporter, friend of a nonprofit makes a difference. And let's be truthful. We need to dig out of a pretty deep hole right now. But I'm thinking we can do that. In the words of President Bill Clinton at his first inaugural, we don't have an American to waste. And there are 330 million Americans who can make a difference. And how do we do that? We embrace something called the go-giver mindset and attitude. And at that cue, I'm going to give her a fuller introduction in a few minutes. But I'd like to welcome my friend, Harriet Dominique, who is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Responsibility and Community Affairs at USAA. Harriet, welcome to the webinar series.
Good afternoon, Jim. What a pleasure to be here. And thank you again for asking me. And really appreciate all that you're doing for the world, for your dedication to make nonprofits more effective. Thank you. And I've learned so much from you myself.
Let me start with this question. How is your family doing?
Everyone is doing so well. We're fortunate to mom and dad, my siblings, my husband's side of the family, we're all doing well. Thank you.
Fantastic.
And
Fantastic.
I hear the same for you. I'm glad you are as well.
Yes, yes. In May of 2018, Andrea and I launched Eskin Fundraising Training. I had spent about 25 years in higher education advancement. I loved it. And I had a chance to work very closely with a variety of business and community leaders who are actually fearless in everything they had to do in their lives, with the exception of asking for a gift. And I concluded, what is most fear about? It's fear of the unknown. And we as ACT practitioners haven't done a good enough job of demystifying the art and science of fundraising. And that's exactly what Eskin Fundraising Training is about. We want to help all you folks that are in nonprofits and what your vision is to make a difference, to make more of a difference. I'm just going to put in here, we'd love to have you participate in our free webinars and when we can go back to live workshops, but we need to have you in our constant contact database. And we're going to send out these slides and this recording, and you'll be able to, if you're not in there, you'll be able to sign up for my free monthly newsletter for nonprofits and all these webinars, okay? So we want to make sure we know how to reach you. Last year, I was very proud to publish my first book. It's not a big book, it's 80 pages, and I try to distill everything I know and to simplify the art and science of fundraising into 10 simple lessons. And by the way, that's going to be the title of our next presentation. Here's our webinar series. Next week, I've updated the 10 simple lessons, and I'm calling it version COVID-19, and it will be updated. My colleague and friend, Marv Leroy, reminds us that in fundraising, money is not the end. It is simply the means to the end. And it's with more money that we empower more mission, and that philanthropy is both giving of money and time. And usually, by the way, they come hand in hand. And I like to think you can take anyone that has the Jeffersonian virtues of a knowing head and an honest heart, and it's devoted to their cause and their nonprofit. We can make them an effective fundraiser. I've seen it over and over again. Fundraising is both art and science, and you can break it into these four components. The first part is identifying who you ask for support. The second part is forging a personal and emotional bond between that donor prospect and the mission of your organization. The third one kind of speaks for itself, and that's setting the stage for asking: the when, the where, the how, the who, the how much. And finally, you close the loop in stewardship is by thanking and acknowledging and engaging your donor, because we want to go back next year and ask them to give again and ask them to consider to give us more. Now, we want to take a little poll. And by the way, and I forgot, John Largent, I usually bring you in at 1 minute. But John, could you take, and John is our producer, he is CEO of Game Day Media, and these webinars would not be possible without his expertise. Could you take a moment of how people can use the chat space?
Sure, Jim. If you'll go down to the bottom of your screen, there are two buttons. One is a chat button, and the other says Q&A, and they're in little thought bubbles, and you can ask your questions in there, and we will answer those as they are placed in there. So if you have any questions, you may want to get them in now, and both Jim and Harriet will take time to answer those at the end of the webinar. Thanks.
By the way, Harriet and I made a deal. If it's a very easy question, I'll take it. If it's a difficult question, we'll delegate it to Harriet. But I have a question here. We'd like to have some feedback to you. Which of the topics would you like to see addressed in future webinars? Type in A if it's prospect identification or discovery, B if it's cultivation, C if it's solicitation, or D if it's stewardship. So take a moment and type in A, B, C, or D.
We're getting answers across the board, Jim.
Good. Okay. Are nonprofits essential? You better believe they are. Before COVID-19, all of you, whether you're staff members, board members, volunteers, or donors, played a profoundly important role in enriching the quality of life. And guess what? Your role is more essential than ever. And Harriet, I think it was 4 shows again, we have introduced this mantra, and it's non-profit strong. And I have a request for our attendees. If you could use that chat space that John just told you about and type in non-profit strong. Harriet, what are we?
Nonprofit strong.
That's exactly right. We're non-profit strong. I have 2 messages of advice before I bring Harriet on. And the first one is, don't take your foot off the gas pedal. Keep on doing what you've been doing. Number 1, communicate, communicate, and communicate to your donors, to your staff, to your stakeholders, to your friends. And sure, we're at a stage right now that there's a lot more that you don't know than what you do know. But what you know better than anyone else in the world is how COVID-19 is impacting the work of your nonprofit and its mission, and you should be sharing that with the world. And number 2, it's pivot. We in the nonprofit world know that we have to change with the world changing. And so you might be taking a very close look at your mission and board and staff discussing how can we help out with the unprecedented challenges posed by COVID-19. Okay, now we get to to Elvis. No, to Cher, I'm sorry. We are thrilled to have as our special guest for today's webinar, Harriet Dominique, who I mentioned is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Responsibility and Community Affairs at USAA. We're so lucky, Harriet, to have USAA, a national model of corporate responsibility and good citizenship, headquartered right here in the Alamo City, San Antonio. You all lead the way in championing the causes of military families and the quality of life in the communities that you're rooted in. One recent example is the $1 million donation to the San Antonio Food Bank, and before that, the $1 million donation to several San Antonio-based relief agencies, including the food bank, that are in the front lines of responding to COVID-19. Let's now get to Harriet. Now, she doesn't like people talking about her, but too bad for Harriet. Starting 31 years ago, she began at an entry-level position in a call center job at USAA. And Harriet has embraced the precious values instilled to her by her parents: humility, faith, and service, to work her way up to her current level of leadership. She is proof positive that good people indeed finish first in life. Today, she leads all philanthropic strategies, including related investments, engagements, data analytics, reporting, and oversight of communications for USAA, which is a $33 billion net worth company with 35,000 employees. It ranks in the Fortune 100. She is also president of the USA Foundation and president of the USAA Educational Foundation. Very pertinent today's webinar, her favorite leadership book is called The Go-Giver. The Go-Giver, a book by Bob Berg and John David Mann that reveals much about her character and her personality. This book delivers through 5 laws what she believes is a crucial business message, specifically addressing that an authentic, strong work ethic with a focus on serving others has so passionately embraced is the key to personal and professional success. Harriet has so passionately embraced, lived and breathed the Go-Giver philosophy that she has been recognized by the author, Mr. Berg, as a shining example of the Go-Giver in action. Also, to use a word that summed up our recent prep session, Harriet is a groovy lady. Harriet, it is such a privilege to have you join us for this webinar, and thanks again for all the wonderful ways that USAA makes our community stronger, especially this time of such profound need. Welcome, Harriet.
Thank you again. I am so excited to be here. And just a couple of expressions of gratitude. Of course, Jim, thank you. I was talking to Jim earlier when we were prepping for the webinar, and I just had to thank him because when I just started in this role about 7 years ago, I didn't know what it meant to lead corporate philanthropy. I was new, though I was been with USA for 31 years, as Jim said, started on the phones. This was a new sector or a new component of the business. And Jim was so kind and generous and patient and supportive as I was learning my way and what it meant to lead philanthropy for a brand that's Fortune 100. So of course, when he asked me to be here today, I immediately said yes, and I'm honored and humbled to be here. So thank you for not only being a colleague who taught me and helped me grow, you've turned to be a friend, and sincerely thanks. And I also want to thank everybody
Did we fist bump on that?
Fist bump, fist bump.
Good, okay.
And so I also want to thank everybody that's taken their time today to be here. I know you learned so much from Jim, but thank you for what you do for the nonprofit sector and the community. It's so very important. And then I must thank Colleen. She's on the line. She's always helps me with these efforts. And then my incredible team, the corporate responsibility team that many of you know that work and do the extra hard work. I'm just so fortunate to have this team that has this gigantic heart to take care of the community, and I'm humbled to lead that team. And Jim, you talked about USAA. What you see here on the screen, folks, is the USAA mission and our standard. And first, about our mission, USAA was founded close to 100 years ago, right here in San Antonio. For those that don't know this, founded right downtown San Antonio by 25 Army officers who couldn't get automobile insurance because they were deemed to be too high risk because of their chosen profession to serve our nation. So they pooled their resources and to take care of each other and each other's family and formed USAA. And so the mission is still true today. 100 years later, we are laser focused on taking care of the military community and their families. You also see on this slide our standard. So at USAA, what we do, our mission, and how we do it, our standard, are equally important. So all of our 35,000 employees are so excited and passionate about taking care of our members, and we're excited about how we take care of each other in our community aligned to our standard. We operate with honesty, integrity, loyalty, and service, and that's the way I've grown up for 31 years with this company. Next slide, please. And Jim, you mentioned the investment that we've made so far in COVID-19, and we're about to make another announcement about an additional investment, but to date, we've invested close to $5 million targeting the needs in our community.
I'm sorry, Harriet, that necessitates another fist bump.
Okay.
Another fist bump. $5 million, that's fantastic.
You see our CEO, Wayne Peacock, here. He's been CEO since the 1st of February, and what a time to lead and become at the helm of the organization right before COVID-19. And he has done this incredible job, first focused on taking care of our members, taking care of our employees, and taking care of our communities. And so with regards to our members, you might have seen the most recent announcement. USAA is returning $800 million in the aggregate and auto dividends for our membership so that they can have a little bit more in their pockets at this time
Harriet,
when it's so needed.
USAA almost has its own stimulus program.
Well, whatever we can do, big or small, we're focused really on making sure our members are okay as much as we can support them. And then we talk about our 35,000 employees, Jim. Right now, over 95% of our employees are working from home. USA wants to make sure that our employees are taken care of well so that we can take care of our members, take care of each other, and take care of our community. And so, as you see, I'm working from home as well. And we have invested over $10 million in equipment so that our employees can work from home safely. And then you also know the way that we take care of our community with our corporate philanthropy. And so $5 million this year, so far for COVID, we invest about 1% of pre-tax income annually in philanthropic causes, and that equates to about $35 million every year. So whether it's our products, our services, or our corporate philanthropy, we want the community to be better. We want the military community to be better because USAA exists. And one thing that I just want to quickly do, because as a 31-year USAA employee, and because of the reason we exist, if anybody's on the line who is active duty guard or reserve, veteran, military spouse, military child, military caregiver, or a family member of somebody who has made the ultimate sacrifice, a family member of someone fallen, I must thank you for your commitment and your service to our nation, and thank you for all you do to keep us free. So 31 years in, I'm excited as if it's day one with the company, and just thank you, Jim, for the opportunity to share a little bit about USAA and why we do what we do and how we do what we do.
Okay, Harry, I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay? And then if
Yes,
time
sir.
allowing, we'll invite questions from the audience. How does USAA Foundation, and USAA Educational Foundation make the difficult decisions on which requests to fund and which ones to pass on? And I'd like to really make this a two-part question. How about in responding to requests for COVID-19? And do you have advice in general for nonprofits and how they can respond to the challenges presented by COVID-19?
Sure. So next slide, please. The decision for us to quickly pivot to the investments aligned to the impacts of COVID-19, I'm not going to say that it was easy, but it was facilitated by the fact that we have a strategy and a structure that governs our approach to philanthropic investment. There are so many needs, Jim, and I know I'm speaking to the choir. We have to have a structure and discipline on where we invest. So as I talked earlier, you'll see the initial investments, close to $5 million that we have already made for COVID, and you see the phased approach that we did and quickly investing and then moving to phase 2 and then ongoing phase 3 as we scan the environment. If we can go to the next slide, this will show how we were able to make those decisions still aligned to our strategy and our mission. So the first 3 rows that you see on this slide depicts USAA's strategic approach to philanthropic investment. And you see that our signature cause is military family resiliency. So when we invest our dollars, our target is that 60% of everything that we invest is aligned to military families. And you see the top row on the areas that we focus for military. We also have a local focus, and you talked about the food bank investment, Jim. You see here under family well-being, that area in the second row, the local focus, addresses needs for hunger and homelessness, and that food bank investment is aligned to that part of our strategy. We also inspire our employees to join along with us. That third row, inspiring others, you see it references employee citizenship. And so far to date, our employees have invested over $1.2 million to help, along with USAID's dollars, to help better the community through COVID-19 investments targeted to COVID-19. And then that last row, we expanded our strategy, which is our guardrails, our parameters, to include an increased focus that allowed agility for COVID-19. And so one investment that you might have heard about is the dollars we gave to the Texas Biomed as they focused on a cure for COVID. This final draft of the row, or the row on the strategy, reinforces why we gave to Texas Biomed. So one of the hardest parts of being accountable for philanthropic investment is I don't like to say no. It's so hard for me to say no. But I have, my team and I are stewards of the USA investments. Our dollars are finite, so this strategy helps govern our decisions. And I really want us to be transparent so that everybody knows where we prioritize.
Okay, we're going to move
on.
on.
So with that,
yep,
I just wanted 2 seconds on, so what can nonprofits do? I would say, following the model that we have within their parameters, how do you remain true to your mission, but then also expand based on what's happening, and then impact COVID? And also collaboration is crucial. We're collaborating more than ever across the enterprise, and that collaboration is what's allowing us to do what we do.
Okay, a couple more questions, Harriet. We're moving at a very good pace. what do you view, and this might have been a pre-COVID-19 question, what do you view as the top challenges facing the San Antonio region?
Yeah, and so I love our city. We have a gigantic heart. We're military city, USA. I mean, my goodness, the Riverwalk, all this goodness that we have. But I do believe that COVID-19 has really shined a spotlight on our areas of opportunity. When we all saw those heart-wrenching pictures of the thousands of cars in line waiting to be fed by the food bank, that shines the light on us being one of the, having one of the highest rates of poverty in the nation here in San Antonio. That is heart-wrenching. And then we also know that one of our opportunities is a better ecosystem for education and talent, so that we also are seen as a talent hub and a place where business wants to come, stay, grow, and thrive. So when I think about the collective passion of the nonprofit community, public-private partnership opportunity, attacking the poverty and education gaps, I believe is something that would distinguish our city even further and fundamentally change the way that we are able to be resilient when things like COVID-19 do happen. Because this is the catastrophe of the day, pandemic, huge, but there will always be something else. And how do we become more resilient as a city?
Harriet, can I ask you, who are your role models in philanthropy?
So, so many people to admire, right, from the nonprofit to corporate sector, but by far, an individual that I want to be when I grow up, Jim, after you, sir, of course, after you, but an individual that I would love to be is Shannon Schuyler. She is the Chief Purpose Officer for PwC, and she has a global footprint accountable for over 250,000 employees. And so that is interesting and inspiring. But what's so beautiful about Shannon is that she has expanded the business model for PwC to where philanthropy and business operations are inextricably linked, and it makes it so much stronger and more impactful. And she has a heart of gold. She is giving and kind and dynamic. So one day, if I work really hard, maybe I can be just a tiny bit close to what Shannon is.
Hey, let's move to something that's very near and dear to your heart, okay? Why is The Go-Giver one of your favorite books and basically your approach to life?
So before we started this, Jim gave me permission to be my authentic self. And so I hope that everybody on the line is allowing me to be authentic, Harriet. And when Jim was reading my bio and talking about me, which is always uncomfortable, I know it's uncomfortable for everybody on the phone as well, but he mentioned the fact that I started USAA 31 years ago, and I started entry level on the phones. And Jim, I remember that day like it was yesterday when I received the call from USAA. I'd tried multiple times and I was declined. And at the time I was, the starving college graduate living at home with mom and dad, like every one of us do. And my mom came home just as I got the call that USAA hired me. And it was entry level in the call center, and we have a very strong faith. So this is me taking your permission to be authentic me.
Please do.
When we got the call, we joined hands, and she started praying for me that if I worked really hard, I could retire from USAA as a frontline supervisor leading 12 people in our contact center. And she said, no, baby, you dream big. You're going to lead 15 people before you leave that company. And that is it was an aspiration for me. And my last role, Jim, before this one was I led the Phoenix campus. We have 3,500 employees there, and that was my accountability. And now I do what I do today. And the reason that I love the Go-Giver so much is it is the story of an individual that starts with challenges, and through learning the 5 laws of stratospheric success, that it's not about you and that you can be valuable individually. That just is that embodies everything that I believe has caused me to be where I am today. And not more importantly, but priority for me is the law of authenticity, the law that says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. It is very intimidating to come on this webinar, to be on stage representing the brand, knowing that my aspiration inside is that frontline rep who wanted to be a frontline manager. And when I get intimidated and I know I'm not as good as Shannon Schuyler and you've done your big stuff, and get worried that, man, am I going to be good enough for this webcast? I remember, the law of authenticity, just me, just be me. My gift is good enough. And so this book really is like my superpower. It lets me know that I can do this and I can make a difference.
And I have to ask you, how does the go-giver attitude inform and inspire us to respond to the unprecedented challenges presented by COVID?
Jim, you answered the question at the beginning of the book. You talked about the power of one individual, one nonprofit, one nurse. And what I would say is the go-giver principles really do show me that even with the enormity of the impacts of COVID-19, and it could almost be debilitating on what could I possibly do and what should I do next, the go-giver really does reinforce the power of one making life-changing decisions. And through your actions, your words, your smile, your dollars, your volunteerism, that go-giver mentality really does make a difference. And many times a difference that you'll never see, but it still has taken place.
Thank you. Another question. What are the hardest lessons you've learned over the course of your career?
Yeah, and so I know that I have about 30 seconds, I think, for the next question, so I'll try to be brief. But truly, this lesson is like a 45-minute conversation, but I will not do that. So I learned early on that the what and the how truly matter. I started with our mission, the what, and the USAA standard, the how. And there was one time in my career early on, and this is professional immaturity, never any mistakes with integrity or core values, but just professional immaturity. I was, sometimes I don't realize that I'm a bit of a controller or a type A. I don't really know that, but I think Colleen, that gets to work with me, realizes that every day. But being a hard charger and a perfectionist and wanting to do everything right, I was in a role where I was barreling through and getting stuff done, but not realizing that I was burning bridges and alienating my colleagues at the same time. And there was a series of events that really brought that to life, that you can get it done and you can be destroying bull in the china shop in your wake. And that was a lesson that hit me in the forehead. And though it was hard at the time, Jim, I am so thankful that I learned that early on. And this was before the Go-Giver, before I knew that book. But the what and the how matter equally. And so that was the hardest lesson.
Sure. Harriet,
does that make sense?
Achieved so much over your remarkable career. Is there anything left on your bucket list?
Yes, I mean, just staring in the face of COVID and knowing that there's just so much more to do, and we're just at the beginning of the recovery and retooling, and being able to help others through philanthropy, and through my leadership lessons and leadership failures. I've made so many professional immaturity mistakes. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. And so the bucket list is to really immediate help COVID recovery and what that means. But in the aggregate, in the bigger picture, continue to leverage go-giver principles to make a difference that matters and that is lasting. I know now that it has nothing to do with me. It's not about me. It's about the people that you touch and make a lasting difference. That's what really matters. So yeah, I feel like I'm just beginning.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to put it. John, Harriet, we're right on schedule. I'll tell you what, Harriet, yeah, you're a good train conductor. We're right on schedule. And so we'd like to entertain a few questions from the audience. John, do we have time for maybe 2 or 3? John, do we have some questions from the audience?
Yeah, we do. This one comes from Dee. She's asking, how do you approach past donors without making them think that you're bleeding them?
Harry, do you want to take first shot, and then I'll come in after you?
And I'm so sorry. I didn't understand John's words. I didn't understand the question.
Okay, John, could you repeat the question, please?
I sure will. How do you approach past donors without making them think that you're bleeding them?
Oh, approach past
the
donors.
Organization, right.
Got it. Okay, sorry. And so what I would say is that there are a couple things that we assess for our company. First and foremost, it has to be aligned to our strategy. And I shared that, and we share that on our website. So we're transparent. Aligned to the strategy and mission, alignment to the brand, and then the crucial key, and I believe that this is getting even more elevated accountability, is evidence of impact of the investment. Whether it is the output, you were saying you'll impact 10 lives, you double the output, or whatever the issue is, you've actually moved it along. Going back, a nonprofit that has exceeded our expectations on our grant agreements, our memorandum of understanding, please come back to me. And believe it or not, I will be reaching out to you knowing that the dollars invested yielded more than expected. So just like for business, anybody that you hire for a business product or service, they deliver beyond your expectations, you'll ask for more. I believe that for the way we run our operations, it's the same. And Jim, I'd love to hear your answer.
I'm going to address that. I have a wrap up I'm going to move to in a few minutes. And I specifically want to answer that question. So John, do we have another or that issue? John, do we have some other questions?
One's asking to explain the relationship between the donor and happiness.
I also want to answer. That's also, I hate to say, but that's part of my wrap up. I'm going to let Harry, you're both a donor and a solicitor, so I'm going to let you share a few comments.
So me being the funder, what is my connection to being a funder and being happy? Well, I believe that that's a great question.
Yeah.
So my happiness, my joy, my peace comes from my faith and know that I'm being authentically me in whatever I do. And with that foundation of joy and peace, I believe comes happiness, knowing that being true to my core and being able to give through the profession that I have, I pinch myself, how lucky that gives me happiness, knowing that I'm impacting my team, my community, others. And I don't know if that's a lame answer, but
I think
I
it's
don't
a
think
good
that,
answer.
I mean, I have to be happy myself in my core before I could be happy as a donor, if that makes sense, Jim.
Yeah, it does. And also, too, I'm going to address some of these head on, John, and so I'm kind of eager to get to that portion, but we have time for another question from the audience.
Yes, this one's from Michelle. She wants to know, how do you work with community partners to educate them on the strategy and structure that enables USAA to invest?
So first, we are transparent with everything that we do. So we have a .com site so that folks that are interested, nonprofits that are interested in collaborating, are easily able to read themselves. Being transparent and honest with the group, there are so many requests we receive, we cannot host a conversation with everybody that's asking. We just don't have the capacity. So we do try to leverage technology to let requesters, nonprofits know exactly what we do. We have in prior years hosted webinars, telechats to explain what we do and why we do it. And so I'm glad that you're asking that question. We probably need to resurface that, but truly, first and foremost, the website is robust and does give information.
That's great. If it's okay, Harriet, I want to address several of those questions and move on to my wrap up. First of all, too, I'm not letting you away yet, Harriet, but you did everything, you answered everything perfectly and right on time. Not only were you a go giver, you were a go punctual person. A couple of things. First of all, we're reminded that big companies like USAA have not big, huge hearts. And on behalf of the community, thank you for the wonderful investments of time and money that USAA and its foundations have made to the communities it's rooted in and to the way it's championed the cause of our military families all across the country. Big companies, how about that? Huge hearts. We've learned too that it's important to know your donors' priorities. And Harriet has shared that. I'm going to bring her into a little conversation. 60% that I hear, 60% of its funding goes to championing the cause of military families. And also the other 40% is invested into strategic issues supporting the quality of life of the communities that it's rooted in. Is that a fair depiction, Harriet? So know your donors' priorities, okay? Know this too. Harriet wasn't kidding. You know, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, Harriet, because there are 1.5 million nonprofits in the country. There's 100,000 in the state of Texas. There's 6,000 in the San Antonio region alone. Guess what? Harriet, as that decision maker, and I'm surprised you don't have more gray hair, she's not choosing between the good and the bad. She's choosing between the good and good. So know this, that the competition is profoundly fierce. And you should be asking yourselves, what makes your nonprofit stand out? What can you say that those 1.5 other million nonprofits can't say? Or if you're in the San Antonio region, those 6,000 other nonprofits. What's your wow statement? What do you do that the others don't, okay? Here's some good news. Philanthropy is not only huge. Last year it hit $428 billion, which equivalates to more than $1 billion a day. That's a lot of nickels. But it's been remarkably resilient. You know, we had a great recession in the year 2008, and philanthropy has returned to the pre-Great Recession levels. Harriet, our guest last week, was Melissa Brown, probably the most prominent philanthropy researcher in the country. And she's saying she's seeing a lot more positive signs that we saw even during the Great Recession of 2008. I was bragging on big companies having big hearts, they do. But I want to highlight this pie chart, that close to 78% of that $428 billion in philanthropy came from individual donors. Now, God bless USAA, God bless the other corporations, God bless USA Foundation and all the other foundations. But the truth of the matter is the overwhelming majority of American philanthropy comes from individuals. And as we put there, a successful strategy should emphasize giving from individuals. Now, don't get me wrong, I love corporate money like USAA and USA Foundation money and other corporations and foundations, but most of the fish are biting in the pond of individual philanthropists. We were talking about there actually are several very positive signs in philanthropy. I don't have the figures yet. Yesterday, of course, was Giving Tuesday now. I haven't seen any numbers, but I know there was a huge response all around the world. And even before that, BBY's giving survey showed that over 30% of donors plan to give more, not less, more than last year. That was reinforced by Fidelity Charitable, and 3 out of their 4 donors plan to give more of the same. And probably in what is considered the most dynamic element of American philanthropy, the donor advised funds, just with Fidelity Charitable last year, those grants totaled over $7.3 billion. Guess what? Donor advised funds are way up over last year. They're 36% up over last year. And we're seeing big philanthropists like the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, pledge $1 billion towards COVID-19. By the way, we should not overlook that philanthropists aren't far away. They're all around us. They live next door. And the fact is that the majority of American households give something to charity every year. There is a lot of go-givers in the United States. Their average giving amount you see. And, you know, they also give that other precious gift, their time. And something I've long discovered, that the gifts of time and money go hand in hand. And here's the thing, we got a question, you know, should you feel reluctant about going back to the same donor? That is assuming a zero-sum game, that the donor has to give up something of like value for your nonprofit to come out ahead. And I have seen there, I've practiced 25 years soliciting gifts. I've received gifts of $100. I've received gifts of several $1 million, a lot more at the $100 level. But here's the beautiful point. Everybody in the philanthropic loop and transaction comes out ahead. They win. And that is the artful solicitor, the proud donor, and the grateful recipient. And I have been close to donors who've made gifts, and they amaze me the way they stretched it. These are individuals to $10,000 or $50,000, and I truly believe they got more out of the process than the recipient. So do not think that you're taking away something from a donor when you ask them to contribute to the cause that you're devoting into. You're actually helping them become a better person and to feel better about themselves. This is one of my mentors is Laura Fredericks. And she puts it this way, you're not taking away something, you're giving them the opportunity to feel good. And guess what? We have statistical evidence that donors live longer, healthier, and happier lives. And wouldn't you say, Harriet? I mean, the go-giver reminds us of that, right? When you give, you get a lot back in return. Isn't that true? That is true. Another point, this is a time to be nimble. You know, most of our nonprofits are small, and you might think, well, what can we do? Being small gives you the platform to pivot, remember that word, and to change. And you board and staff should be thinking now, how can we help our community, our state, our nation, our world respond to the challenges of COVID? So take advantage of your ability to make changes in strategies and tactics and plans. And something I like to say, fundraising, you better believe it, we can do from home. We have to do it a little differently, but we want to engage our donors and our friends and our supporters. And we're learning how to do, we want to treat them like family. And what's happening? We're checking in with family members every day. We're asking how are they doing. We're telling them how we're doing. We're asking if there's anything we can do to help. That's the way we should treat our donors like family. And we're seeing amazing results from virtual hugs, okay? I mean, Harriet, I love USAA, but I wish I had invested in Zoom before this. I mean, everyone is doing video conferencing. You can email and phone call. I even know, Harriet, people that are doing curbside stewardship touches. I have a colleague, I know you're a peanut butter cookie person, but I have a colleague that makes the world's best chocolate chip cookies, and she's dropping them by at the doorstep of some of her donors and then knocking on the window. Curbside stewardship, I love it. There are things we're learning to how to use technology. And by the way, I might add one other advice. I know some development officers, I mean, the demographic truth is that most of our donors are advanced in age, like me. And maybe they're not up in technology and Zoom and the other video conferencing. I think a great way you're going to add value to their life is to teach them how to do video conferencing. Not only will that improve the relationship between them and your nonprofit, but it will improve their relationship with their loved ones and family. So help them along. Let's practice giving virtual hugs. I know we have some board members that are participating. In other words, you know, Harriet, and we know about board members. They work hard, we just don't pay them. And board members can play a key role now. Even if they say, you know, we're afraid of asking for a gift, well, don't ask for the gift. Work with staff to get the names of your key donors, and as a board member, reach them out and tell them at this time of profound need how special, how much their gift means to your nonprofit. Engage the board members in the thanking process. It's a great way to get their feet into the lake of fundraising. Harriet, you mentioned superpower, didn't you? I like to say that nonprofits do have a superpower. And you know what that is? Their purpose, you know, their mission. They help in so many different ways improve and enrich and add to the quality of life. And I like to say, I like alliteration, but purpose powers perseverance. Harriet, say that 3 times fast. I can't. But again, our nonprofit friends, you are special, okay? And every day, you are making a difference. That's where we started. And guess what? If you made a difference between COVID-19, you are going to make an even bigger difference now. I wanted to end with a quote. Harriet, in February, we lost one of the great actors, probably the most famous chiseled chin in Hollywood, okay, of Kirk Douglas. And, you know, and I recently read some books that he wrote, and I didn't realize, I mean, he was such a champion of social justice, and also he was a pioneer in philanthropy. He and his wife started a foundation in the year 1964, and they were at the forefront of Hollywood actors and directors getting involved in philanthropy. He left his entire estate to philanthropy. Kirk Douglas, and by the way, he lived a good life, 103, and we lost him in February. And my wife actually shared this quote with me. You haven't learned how to live until you've learned how to give. Would you call that a go-giver? Kirk Douglas, God bless him, was a go-giver. Finally, Harriet, I don't leave these webinars without giving everyone a money-back guarantee. money back guarantee, okay? And that is your chances of getting the gift go way up when you ask. Your chances of getting the gift go way up when you ask. Harriet, would you agree?
Agree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, again, I want to give special thanks on so many levels. Number one, to my friend and my go-giver, Harriet, Dominique, and thank you for those kind words. Based on that, Andrea and I are going to have an extra glass of wine. That's how good you made me feel. But again, you are such a shining example of the go-giver. And so I know you never take credit for yourself, and you just can't. I don't think it's in your DNA as a go-giver. But thank you again to your huge family of USAA colleagues. They have done so much to enrich our community. And, you know, one person can make a difference. You're making 35,000 differences. So thank you for what USAA and the USAA Foundation, the USAA Educational Foundation do. And I'll tell you what, this has been so much fun. I know your schedule is busy and getting busier, but we're going to do this again. I'm going to put you on the spot. I want a fist bump on that. Thank you. John Largent, the man who makes the impossible possible, as our producer, CEO of Game Day Media. Thank you, John, so much for helping us reach the nonprofit community. Our plan is we are going to put an immediate post on LinkedIn and Facebook. That will be by LinkedIn rules, I think 1,300 character space limit. And then we are going to post a recording and slides that we have presented over the last hour. And we're going to, first of all, we're going to send that to all the registrants, to everyone who participated. And if you registered and didn't happen to participate, we're still going to send you the recording and slides, and then we're going to post it on social media. So again, on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training, it is our privilege and our pleasure to work with you, our partners in the nonprofit community, because by working together and by one person at a time, I don't care if you're a nonprofit staff member, I don't care if you're a board member, a volunteer, a donor, you make a difference. And 330 million Americans working together. We don't have an American to the waste. We are going to dig ourselves out of this hole, and we're going to come out of it stronger than ever. What do you think, Harriet?
I agree. I have no doubt. And thank you again. And thanks to all the participants. I looked at some of the comments. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, an honor.
Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, John. And we're going to give everyone, since Harriet gave us permission to have a second glass of wine, we're going to get a head start here. And I think actually we're going to close this a couple of minutes ahead of schedule. So thank you. We'll see you next week. And we're going to present the 10 Simple Fundraising version COVID-19. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe and healthy. And remember, we're nonprofit strong. Thank you.
Nonprofit strong. Thanks, Jim. Take care. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you, Harriet.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, John. Be safe.